I want to move on and just talk about, just the season ahead now. And we'll make this last topic. We'll talk about Thomas Frank as well himself. Sarah, for you, we've got massive 3 games coming up this month. We've got Newcastle. We got Man United on the weekend, Newcastle and Arsenal. In what is like a massive bid to try and turn this form around. Obviously, massive pressure on Frank, despite uptick in arguably performances and a few better results. We actually are unbeaten in 4, incredibly, when looking at that. For you, given we're in the midst of an injury crisis and we're playing, we only have like 13 fit players. Hopefully Romero and Van de Ven make the weekend. Where are you with Frank, and how do you think we go about judging him at this point, given how many injuries we do have? Like, does he need results despite that injury crisis right now to justify his position, or do you think there is some understanding at the moment with that?
So for me personally, I'm a season ticket holder. I go to every game. So I think, as someone who goes to every game and has to sit through a lot of the dross and watch a lot of the dross that we pull out week on week, look, it's not a great watch. Part of it is down to tactics. Part of it's down to personnel. And I do think that sometimes it just takes time. I know that a lot of fans have run out of patience. And I know that we kind of want everything to just stick and just to continue with season 3 as if none of this ever happened. But the reality is we are rebuilding again. We are at season 1. And given the mess and the state of the squad at the beginning of the season, I'm willing to give Frank some grace. And I know people don't like that, they don't agree with me, and that's absolutely fine. We don't have to agree. We can be divided by opinion and united by Spurs, So I am willing to give him grace until the end of the season. I think I said at the beginning of this season, he needed at least 2 to 3 transfer windows. And given that we've done nothing in this transfer window, he most definitely needs the summer transfer window. Do I think he's going to be the guy to take us forward and win trophies and everything at this moment in time? No, I don't. However, if he was to get us into some kind of European football, if he was to get us to a quarterfinal, if he was to turn it around, if we were to see the players come on side and he can win the fans back on side, maybe I would say, you know what, give him another season. Because nothing changes overnight. And look, we have become very jaded with the manager situation. The problem is we've had 17 managers. So at some point you have to look around the room and go, well, hang on a minute. If all of these guys are the problem, maybe we're actually the problem. So who are you going to get who is going to tolerate, or work with the board at that level, who's going to be okay with it and not throw their toys out the pram? Because unfortunately that's the reality of the board as it is at the moment. You can't just turn everything over. So if he's the guy who's going to have a bit of patience with that, then okay, well, I'll reserve my judgments till the end of the season. I'm not saying I'm in or out. I'm just saying for now, I take the back seat, I swallow my pride, I watch a crappy first half against City, and then I watch the redemption, and then I go to Europa League, Champions League nights, and it's the best night of my life. And I'm like, how are these 2 different teams? How are they 2 different audiences? Because the stadium, the fans are completely different on Champions League nights. They are. It is a team of 2 halves. Completely, those fans that go on Champions League nights, they're more students. They're not ticket holders who have been going for decades and decades, who have become jaded. There is a different atmosphere. And this is a topic that I've talked on extensively. But for me, I think there is a difference. And so, look, I'm willing to give him some grace if I can see that the players are on board with it and they're performing for the manager. Then I would say give him another window, and then okay, we have to figure it out after that. But you can't keep building the foundations of your house and then knocking the foundations down, because you're never going to build the house. You're never going to put the furniture inside. It is always going to be an empty shell. And at the moment, unfortunately, until we stick with someone and we actually back it, we're never going to see the fruits of the labour that they've put in. You're just not. It's going to keep going like this for seasons.
For you, Stal, I know you've been not happy with Frank. I've not been happy with Frank for a lot of the season. But at the current moment, with the transfer window over, no one new signing, we've lost Johnson, a lot of problems there, injury crisis. I think 8 long-term injuries currently within the squad, and I think on top of that you got Porro, Spence out for a month. You've got Van de Ven and Romero who are struggling at the moment. Is there a bit of grace you give him at the moment with what's going on, or does he need results for you right now to change your opinion?
Ange never got any grace. Ange got blamed for all the injuries. So
he got 2 seasons.
Yeah, and he finished 5th in his first one.
Well, the season's not over yet. People are saying we finished 14th. The season's not over. We could win 2 games and we could go 10th.
Are you publicly stating we're going to finish 5th this season?
Not fifth. But I do think that we can, if we can go on a run. Look, I don't think we lose these next 3 games. I think we can take points from it.
I think with Thomas,
we've got more chance of getting points against United than we do against Fulham. Let's be honest.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Man United they're gonna beat us.
They haven't beat us in 3 seasons. They haven't beat us in 3 seasons.
I don't look at past results to determine the future results because things change, right? For me, coming off the Man United result, we can discuss that after if Sim wants. With Thomas Frank, that's the question you asked me. I think Thomas Frank is a manager. If you throw £300-400 million at him, he'll get us top 4 and make us a top 4 team. I have no doubt about that. If that's what fans want, to be a top 4 team and kind of sit there, then keep Frank. If you want a team that's going to be exciting to watch and actually win trophies, then for me, Frank is not that guy. He's never won anything in his career, 14 years, and he's never been taught by anyone who is of a level that has won trophies to learn from, which is why I hate the comparison of Arteta and Frank. They're 2 completely different managers, 2 completely different coaching careers. For me, I think Frank is good, but I don't like his football. I prefer a manager that's more braver, that plays a more attacking, progressive game. Yes, that manager has to also not neglect defending, which was Ange's biggest flaw. But for me, I don't find Frank a balanced manager. I think he's reactionary. Whenever we go 2-0 down, the shackles come off and then we suddenly look like we can play football. It's happened too many times. I do think, though, if you give him the money, he'll make us a top 4 team. But I want us to push on from that. I had that with Redknapp. I had that with Poch, just being that top 4 team. I want to push on from that. And I want a manager that's going to be of that ilk. That's my personal take on it. Again, it depends what you want as a fan. Do you just want to be in that big 4 again? Or do you actually want to get to those heights that we just narrowly fell short of with Pochettino? I want to get back to that Poch, but get it over the line. And for me, Frank is not that man to do it. But he can build us a team for the next guy to take over, though. I do believe Frank can do that.
Would you at this point, are you giving him to the end of the season, though?
There's no choice. He's not going anywhere. We have to. It's not a choice. He's not. They're not going to sack him.
But we are, I think, right now in the league, 2 wins in 15, aren't we? I think 2 wins since October, which was the Brentford game, and in the league anyway, Brentford game and the Palace game. If West Ham, they're showing signs of life over there, and 2 wins and then they were 2-0 up against Chelsea.
They're not going to win 4 more games than us, Sim. They're not going to win 4 more games.
We've only won 2 in the last 15.
They're not going to win 4.
How scary?
They've got to win 4 more games than us.
They've
got 21 goal difference. 3 is not enough for them. They need 3 and a draw.
I agree with Sarah. I don't believe we'll get relegated. I do believe we can get into a mild version of a relegation battle. I don't think Spurs are going down. The next couple of games, I think we lose to United. I think we beat Newcastle, and then we lose to Arsenal. Probably beat Palace and struggle against Fulham, something like that. But we'll get maybe 1 win, 2 losses, draw, and we'll just somehow stay in that 14th, 15th, 12th bracket around there. And that's what we are.
For you, Sarah, how do you think he manages this injury crisis? Do you think we're going to see some more creative decisions like, we've seen Paulinho at centre-back recently, Gray at right-back. Do you think he's been quite good at finding solutions to the current injury crisis?
I don't know if I'd call that good playing Archie Gray on right wing, would you? I don't know. Look, Archie Gray, bless him. Look, the guy's played every position on the pitch, Archie Gray. Is he going to be a very good midfielder for us? Yes, but I don't think, unfortunately, he himself has had the consistency to be in the same position and play with the same personnel week in, week out in order to get the best out of him so far. He's got the potential, but playing him at right back is not the solution for either him or the squad. He's a stopgap, and Frank is doing the best with what he's got. You know, we didn't bring in the players. Players are injured. Hopefully, Porro's going to be back, 2-3 weeks.
They said around the North London derby, hopefully.
Yeah, that probably means after then. We've heard it all before. The same as Richie. Yeah, he'll be out for 7 weeks. 7 months later, Richie's still out. Like, that's just standard. You know, we're so used to it now. So I think, look, Frank's got a very tough job, and some of the decisions he's making probably wouldn't have happened unless he was put in this position. And he's not the first manager to be under that kind of pressure. We saw that last year with Ange. So would you rather... Well, Danso's out for the rest of the season, but would you rather a Paulinho Dragusin centre-back pairing, or would you rather a Davis Gray centre-back pairing? You know, it's the same situation, different season. So ultimately, the manager is always the fall guy. Unfortunately, they are always the scapegoat for ENIC. And so he's dealing the hand that he's been dealt. And is it the best formation? Probably not. Is it the most exciting football? Probably not. Can I see Odegaard and Xavi getting more into their stride, clicking more? Yes, and I think having Solanke on the pitch absolutely makes a difference. I know Stel said earlier that we don't have a striker that can make the ball stick. I agree. Richarlison, he can't make the ball stick, but he can score. Dominic Solanke can do both on a good day. And the question is, can he keep enough rotation in the squad to keep players who are coming back like Solanke on the pitch? And unfortunately, that means making tough decisions that fans don't like playing Kolo Muani, because we know Muani's not good enough. But if you're going to keep Solanke fit, you can't play him 90 minutes in and out of every single game. It's player welfare, you know. So there's a balance, and I think it is a fine line. And unfortunately, he's doing the best with what he's got. From what that's my read.
Sarah, one second. Thomas Frank chose to drop Matthias Tell for Muani in the Champions League, right? That was his choice.
Yeah.
So there are choices. He chooses to start Muani instead of Odegaard against Man City. For me, there are... Do you know, Chatoli's with Frank that frustrates me with him. He was meant to be this masterful tactician, someone that reads the game and knows how to play the right chess piece at the right time. And this is how, you know, they call him the professor. I wasn't happy with the decision he made in the last 10 minutes of the Super Cup. Okay, it's the Super Cup. Then there was a game where I think it was Fulham. I think it was Fulham. Or was it Villa? I can't remember. It was Aston Villa. No, beg your pardon. It was the Newcastle away game where he rested a couple of players to go all out
in the Carabao Cup. Yeah.
And then we put in the most horrendous performance against Chelsea. I thought, well, that wasn't the smartest move. Then he goes to the Emirates, plays the most negative tactics I've ever seen any manager, even Christian Gross, who was the worst. He got a draw against Arsenal with the worst Spurs team ever. We go up there and just basically surrender to Arsenal. He didn't even try to even give it a go. And then I thought to myself, why would you do that? But the icing on the cake for me was against Forest. We're 2-0 down, and he'd proven that season he can come back from that. We were 2-0 down against Brighton. Second half, came back 2-2. We could have won it. He proved it against Man City. And by the way, against Man City, we had more injuries than any other game this season. And he proved in the second half, 2-0 down, if I go for it, I can get something from it. Yet we go away to Nottingham Forest. We're 2-0 down. What does he do? He brings on Paulinho and Ben Davies. Not one attacker came on. And what happens? We lose 3-0. It's things like that where I say, how can you not see that? You're on £8 million a year, professional manager, but you've proven in other games when we're in a similar situation that you can do it. It's things like that which says to me he hasn't got that winning DNA.
I've got a question.
Consistency in his decision making.
Go on.
And it contradicts what he can do.
Go on, Sarah.
Yeah, I've got a question, because I know you said at the beginning of that he made the decision to put Muani in the Champions League squad. So in some cases, and not all cases, because it's a case-by-case basis, but in some cases, players are have agreements or contractual obligations when they sign on to a club, right? So let's say hypothetically that part of Moani's loan deal was that he gets Champions League football. Who would you take out the squad to put Tell in as of like the first half of this season? Because we know we can make changes now, but at that point, who would you have actually taken out to make space for Tell?
Well, the Champions League squad.
Yeah. Because you said he put in Moani and he's not very good, but he didn't put in Tell, and that was a poor decision. So who would you have taken out?
No. It was, sorry, Sarah, maybe I wasn't clear. It's when he put in Tell, because we had injuries, and then we get into January.
He took Solanke out to put Tell in because Solanke was out. And then he put Solanke back in for Tell because Solanke came back.
But that was a good decision because Solanke scored 3 and 3, right?
No, it's the fact he kept Moani in.
But
you can only do a like for like. You can't change another player. The player has to be out for 60 days.
In that scenario, I stand corrected. I didn't realise that was the rule.
Yeah.
But games this season where Moani has been given more minutes than Tell and Odobert this season. I just find that unbelievable. When he doesn't score, he doesn't create. He had 1 or 2 good games all season, and yet Odobert has more about him, in my opinion, on especially on the left than Moani. Listen, I don't think any of these players are particularly spectacular, but the amount of minutes Moani's been given, the amount of opportunity he's been given, and he's delivered absolutely nothing other than a purple patch against PSG and 1 through ball to Odobert against Aston Villa in the FA Cup, and yet he continues to pursue with him when he does have alternative options that he doesn't even want to give them a go. That stuff like that I don't understand.
I think for me the big problem I have with Frank, people say like, in terms of him adjusting and adapting, I actually think he does do that. I think his big issue comes when he has to be the protagonist. He has to be the one on the front foot. The things are asked of us. That's where he doesn't really have a game plan or a game model to dominate and kind of take the game to the opposition and make sure we're creating consistent chances and break another team down. I think we've seen it even recently. When we've been in games and obviously we've conceded goals or things have gone against us, we've had a horrible first half, and then he makes adjustments, a few tweaks here and there. He can change and adapt at half time, and then we come out in the second half and we nearly get back in the game, we snatch a draw or whatever, we look like we could draw and stuff like that. I think he can make these in-game adjustments, but first of all, they haven't been good enough to win games. But I think when it's on us from the start of games to get, okay, we're going to set up in this way. We're going to make it so difficult for you to get out of your own half. We're going to we're going to open you up. We're going to create all these chances. I think his game model is very simple. It's very basic. It's no central progression. Make sure you're not risking giving the ball away in the centre because you can get counter-attacked on and we can't control that. So make sure you put it out wide, flood the back post, get crosses in and see if you can get joy. And if you don't get any joy from the original cross, you win a corner and then maybe we can score from a set piece, and that's how we set up to win the game. And from the other side of it, when the opposition are attacking, give them all the space in the world apart from in the penalty box. Basically, you can do whatever you want as long as you're not entering our penalty box. We don't really care what you're doing. Have all the shots from 25 yards that you like with impunity, and just don't get into the penalty area. And that is leading to us getting punished by good quality players and teams who have the quality to put it in the back of the net from 25 yards. And it's leading to very stodgy, horrible football and easy to defend against, I think, a lot of the time, apart from maybe the set pieces, which I think we're doing a very good job on. But from open play, it's very easy to read. They know what we're going to do. We're going to put out wide and put a cross in. Just make sure you don't leave any free man at the back post, and you've pretty much got us sussed. And that is basically the big problem I have with Thomas Frank. And we need someone who's going to come in and put a much better in-game model into these players. And so we're getting the best out of Javi in those centre areas. We're seeing more from our attacking players, because I think we have good talent in this squad which is not being utilised at all by this manager, and he's put in a very basic model which I think maybe when it's at Brentford it can if you scale that way of playing, if you get that effective way of playing over months and years like they did at Brentford, it could maybe be an effective way of playing at a certain level, but not at the top level. I think when you're a top team, you need to have more. You need to be better than that, in my opinion.
Jim,
that's kind of how I feel about Frank.
if you look at the Premier League this year, there's only 3 games where we've been attacking from the off. Okay, Man City, Liverpool, and Burnley. They're the only 3 games where from the off we were on the front foot trying to win the game. Every other game, it's been negative, in my opinion, cowardly or reactionary, where we've got nothing to lose.
I
and then
think
he just goes for it.
I think he's very risk averse at the beginning of games because he tries to see what the opposition are doing so he can make the tweaks to win the game. That's what I think. I actually started to think that's what he's doing because he's a very adaptable manager and he likes to make these in-game tweaks and maybe change a little position here. Maybe things that aren't that obviously noticeable.
No, Sim, do you know what? I disagree a bit with this because we had the upper hand against Man City, right? We had the upper hand and then we ended up resorting to going more defensive for the last 10 minutes. If he kept his foot on the gas, I reckon we would have beaten Man City. They at 2-2, they were there for the taking.
Yeah, but they can. In Frank's defence, they could bring on Foden. They could bring on all these unbelievable players.
They lost their only top player on the day was Shirky, and he went off injured. He was the only guy that looked like he was going to do something.
I'm just saying they have a bench.
Yeah, but those players came on and they did nothing. Like I think we could have beaten Man City in the end had we not ended up resorting to going more defensive the last 10 minutes.
I also think he's very reactive to game state, extremely reactive. I think we've seen that many times as well. And as soon as we got back against City, it's happened before. We were against Bournemouth, we were on top of them. As soon as we get that equaliser, all of a sudden Bournemouth come back in the game. Same with Burnley. We come out flying, we score the goal. As soon as we score, we back off and allow Burnley into the game. My point. He's very reactive to game state.
This is my point. He hasn't got that winning DNA. You look at Carrick, okay? He goes to the Emirates. They have a fantastic game. Arsenal do what they always do, and they stink out an equaliser. What's Carrick's response? We go for the win. A point would be brilliant, but we go for the win, and he got it. He's playing Fulham. Fulham had more possession at Old Trafford. Man United are winning. Fulham come back. 2-2 in the dying minutes. Carrick, does he sit there and take the point? No. We go for the win. And he got it. It's that. Have you got the balls to be risky in a moment where most people would just take what they've got because they're on the back foot? This is what I believe Frank's lacking. He hasn't got that. Whereas Poch, Poch would go for it. Harry Redknapp would go for it. And he goes for it even when we shouldn't, right? he goes for it no matter what. I just think Frank lacks that killer edge. That doesn't mean he's a bad manager. That doesn't mean he's terrible. But for what I want that killer edge to a manager. I don't think he's got edge.
Go on, Sarah.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. I think the biggest thing is obviously if you want to play top 6 football, you need to play big top 6 football. And at the moment, we're not playing top big six football.
Yeah.
And I think part of that problem is, which is feeding into the narrative, which is not helping Frank, is the fact that Brentford are above us at the moment. But my question is do you think that, because from what I've seen, I completely agree with what you're saying, Sim, in terms of like the change in game state play and very reactive, because from what I've seen from our Champions League games and the performance that we have in those games, we played FC Copenhagen, when we played Frankfurt, when we played Dortmund, we did start on the front foot. Now, I get that the intensity and the physicality is different to the Premier League, but just in terms of style of play, we did start on the front foot. So do you think there are different tactics that are happening across maybe Premier League games and Champions League games, and like maybe why he's making those selections, or is that just down to the nature of the competitions?
I think most home games, I think it's a very clear pattern. We have a very quick first 10 to 15 minutes, really go at them, then settle back into our game and kind of just be very risk averse. And sometimes we're 1-0 up at that point and sometimes we're not. But I think against maybe in the European games, we can be that little bit more physical because we have such a physical advantage, I feel, in these European games than we do in the Premier League, where I feel there's a lot even. Obviously, in those European games that you're talking about, against Dortmund, first of all, they went down to 10 men. And then in the second half, we did drop back completely. I thought we were just playing, basically just looked to see out the 2-0, which I think is fair enough given the circumstances of injuries, but we didn't hold that intensity for the whole game. We did it for basically 45. Against Frankfurt, I think we did a good job, but again, we are playing against a Frankfurt team which was already out the competition, was resting a bunch of players, so maybe what was their motivation really in that game? So we didn't have to it wasn't a big effort. Well, I'm not saying we didn't try, but I don't think it was like a crazy effort for us to dominate them and kind of physically keep on them for most of the game, considering they were checked out, it seemed to me, for me, and we had the physical advantage on top of that as well. So I do think there are definitely differences. I think we saw that last year as well in Europe. I think because the Premier League, I think the biggest advantage it has over the other leagues, I think, is physical. I think physically they completely dominate the other leagues, like massively. I think because the Premier League has trended in the last few years, especially, into being a lot more. You need to be physically dominant. It's not enough just to be technical. You have to have that baseline physicality as well. We're taking all the best physical players from across across Europe, essentially, all the European teams, and it's led to the Premier League being not only this financial behemoth, but also this physical behemoth as well. You see at Arsenal, every player now 6 foot, like really powerful running as well, amazing stamina. That is what most Premier League teams are looking for at the moment. So I think when we're comparing our league to the other leagues, it's just physically in another level, I feel.
Yeah, I guess I was talking more about like tactically, because I guess there's obviously, if we're saying that we don't start as on the front foot in the Premier League, like, it's unfair to say that that's not in Frank's style to do that, because we are showing that we do that. So.
Yeah, I think we have done. It's different. It's an interesting one. Yeah, we have done it in quite a few games. I think there's a definite clear pattern in a lot of games.
Because we see see moments of it, and then we get the hope, and we're like, oh, we can play like that.
I think
but
first
why
10 minutes.
we,
I think it's a clear pattern. First 10 minutes, we have a bit of a go, and then we drop back. I think that must be. Yeah. I don't know if it's a plan to like go at them and then stick on them. I think it's a clear plan. See if we can get an early goal, get ourselves ahead. But if not, we drop back anyway. I think either way, we seem to drop back right after 10 minutes.
I think in Europe, it's two things. First of all, the level of competition is far less than what we play in the Premier League. That's why 5 teams finished in the top 8. The Champions League all came from the Premier League. The fact that Spurs came 4th is ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. But that's the level of European football at the moment. I think the biggest factor is in Europe, you get a lot more space and time on the ball, so it allows our players to play. Whereas in the Premier League, a lot of teams will either low block or squeeze the game, which means that you can't really misplace too many passes because they'll capitalise on it. Whereas in Europe, you can, if you look against Frankfurt in the first half, the amount of misplaced passes we made were ridiculous. They didn't punish us once. Our passing was awful in that first half, but we got away with it. In the Premier League, even Burnley capitalised on it and scored. So I think European football is just different because they play different and they give us more space to play football. Whereas in the Premier League, you don't really get that much space to play.
That's also another big point. I think Anthony Gordon was asked about this in a press conference, what the big difference is. And he says because you're in the Champions League, you're playing against teams, obviously, who are doing very well in their league. They're confident. They believe they can come out and win these games. They come to play these Premier League teams and they open and they think we're going to, we're not scared of you. We're going to try and play football, and teams just rip them apart. Whereas in the Premier League, everyone's acknowledging now that in the Premier League that you need to be smarter because physically, it's a very even playing field, and everyone's just not opening up as much as they're much more wary of each other, I guess, in the Premier League than the Champions League, and I think that's obviously a big difference. All right, I think we're gonna. And is Sarah frozen? Oh, she's back.
No, I'm back.
Yeah,
I did have one final question,
Go
Tim.
on.
If I can, I know this is your show, but I have a question.
Please do.
You know this whole Mole situation, the traitor, the saboteur that keeps leaking our lineup.
Yeah.
Do you think that this has any impact on the gameplay or like other teams finding out our system or strategy before the game? Because in my opinion, I think this is like a big problem, but maybe I'm making too much out of it. But it's
first of all, do we think every rival club is following all the Tottenham ITKs? Maybe they are. But do I think it's a major problem?
Like if the team you're playing finds out 2 days before how you're setting up, like does that have any impact on like tactics? Like, because you go into a game and then you're like, okay, well, we know who's playing on the left wing, so we've already got our plan, but now we can adapt to this. I don't know. It's just because it's a recurring thing. This has been going on for like a couple of seasons now. So look, it can't be helping. So I'm just curious if that is.
Well, look, Arteta keeps injury news very close to his chest pre-match, I guess, for a reason. You got to say, I think it probably does have an impact. I wouldn't say, I don't think it's an excuse. But then again, you could play with it. Maybe you leak a lineup and then change it. You know what I mean? If it's that much of an issue, like I understand that it probably is a bit of an advantage if the opposition are looking at these things online and notice that the lineups are being leaked, and then they can plan for it. But I would also say they could maybe plan for what the lineup's going to be in terms of the players, but they don't know how they're being set up. They don't know the minutiae of the little nuances of positioning, all that kind of stuff. So I don't think in theory, it shouldn't make too much difference. But I guess it's a small advantage if you know, let's say, we're going to have Richarlison instead of Solanke, so we know we're not going to be as good as holding the ball up, so you can plan for that kind of thing. There are maybe little details maybe you can plan for, but in terms of should it be an excuse to drop points, I wouldn't say so.
No, not an excuse. Yeah, definitely not an excuse. I don't know. I just think it makes me uncomfortable, you know? It makes me uncomfortable that like other teams know how you're lining up, that that someone inside our club who clearly knows what the lineup is, who's either from our marketing team or from the journalist side, you know, like it's look, people can't be aligned if you have people in your club.
It was so funny.
You know?
There was a Twitter account who I know when I'm friends with, and he like leaked some like information about the lineup or whatever before the game, and because he gets bits and pieces from within the club, and then Ange, it was when Ange was in charge, Ange like the next day was going on about this mole, and I was like, mate, he's onto you. He's like, I know. Ange was saying, I know who it is. We're gonna root him out, and I'm like, God, you got to run, mate, run and hide.
This is what I mean. I mean, I caught wind of something, and I published a lineup on my channel, and people were saying, well, you're part of the problem, and I'm saying, but if it's on the public domain anyway, you know, if it's out there, then it is what it is. But why is it even out on the public domain in the first place? Who from inside the club is doing that? If apparently the mole was sacked in November.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that get leaked. Like I know for a fact that there's people who work within the club who aren't like necessarily employed by the club, like kids of people who worked in the club who maybe get access just because they're picking up their dad or whatever or something, and like there's maybe a chart on the wall that says return dates and they just can see it and that gets leaked. Like just those kind of things happen. Like it's crazy.
This club's a mess. We are a mess, aren't
from
we?
top to bottom, and honestly it's crazy. Like you got the players rallying against the board, you've got sporting directors leaving after 2 months after being appointed. It's everything. We make one signing in the transfer window, which is in the only position in the squad that we have depth in. We leave the transfer window with one less winger than we started with, even though that was a big position we were prioritising in the window.
Two less. We got rid of Scarlett as well.
And Solomon. We brought Solomon back and then loaned him out when we could have used him. Like even though that was the priority position going into the window, was somehow weaker. We weakened ourselves in the priority position that we wanted to strengthen in the window. The whole thing is crazy.